Hey everybody, Mike Toy here with Bonsai Boise. So in this video, I just wanted to show some of the different styles that you can do with Ficus Benjamina. Some of the different experiments I've been doing, an update or two on a few that maybe I've done videos on before, but mostly just kind of showcase the flexibility that these Ficus Benjaminas have. You can really do a lot with them. I know a lot of people don't like to use these as bonsai, and that's fine, but I certainly do. They propagate very easy. They take to wiring very easy. They take to clip and grow very easy. They're just really good trees to work with, especially if you're new at bonsai. So this one in particular, I call it my kids bonsai because it was a cutting from a tree that I gave my kids some years ago. And I'm just kind of growing it out. I want to keep it about the height that it is and about the shape that it is, kind of this triangle, just sort of a traditional triangle bonsai shape. But of course, want to thicken it up. So just a quick look at this one. This is sort of a traditional, close to a traditional upright style. It's about 5 years old. This one, also a cutting, probably about 2 years old. I've actually had a harder time with this, getting it to where it is now. It was kind of I'll say an accident, sort of accidentally ended up in this shape and style, but I'm starting to finally like it. I guess I couldn't even tell you why I had a difficult time with it at first. It just didn't really respond well to some of the different things that I was trying. Kept falling over, or most of it was user error. I would knock it over or something, or bump it too hard, and so it had a bit of a rough go at first, but it's finally, I would say, the roots have gave it some stability in its pot now, and I've wired it up like this and just bent it. It's sort of a half cascade, sort of a half literary. I never say that word right, but anyways, that's a quick look at this one. It's been a fun little tree. Now this is more of a windswept style that I've been doing. I've been working on this one for about 6 years now, I think. You can see a big cut point there, right? You see a big black splotch on the trunk. That's where I did a big trunk chop a couple years ago. I put this certain cut paste on and then put it back in the greenhouse, and for whatever reason it just caused that wound to turn black. It's been like that ever since. But anyways, a windswept look is what I've been going for. It's got its challenges. This is my first attempt at it. Styling the branches and getting the structure right is a little different. Couple obvious things I'll point out if you're trying one of these for the first time. When you move them outside in the spring and summer months, make sure that you've got the foliage pointed toward the sun so that it grows in that direction. And make sure you've got the backside of the foliage, the side we're looking at now, facing the wind so that it actually does blow as a windswept look. It'll make your life a lot easier. Fun little tree. I've grown to like it. Quick cut over to some newer ones here. These were all cuttings. The smallest one up front, right there, in the little gray pot, is actually the oldest. It's about 3 years old. It's not much to look at first glance, but I really like it. The look I'm going for on this one is just a tall, slender, kind of elegant look. Get a closer look at it here, and you'll see that I've wired up the branches. I like the structure. I just like the way it's going. It's in this really small pot, so I can put it on my desk in the wintertime, put it in a windowsill anywhere, put it in the greenhouse. I mean, it's kind of cool in that sense. I'm not restricted on where it goes. So that's my little office window, whatever. This is a cutting that is about a year old. That stick up front, just kind of, I put that there to mark where the front is going to be, I think. It's got this hard 90-degree turn, which most people don't like. In this particular case, I actually like it. Maybe it's the angle, maybe it's the, I don't know what it is about it, but I just like it. Got a ways to go. It's not very thick, still kind of just a cutting, but got a promising future. This one's a couple years old. I did wire this one up at one point, and the wires cut into the trunk pretty quickly. So I took the wires off, kind of lost its shape a little, then I rewired it. One other funny accident that I had with this is, like, see how it kind of goes up and then curves around? At first I had the beginning of that curve going off to the right, and it ended up looking like a question mark, which was not my intention. So I kind of try to rearrange it and fix that a little bit. I look for these type of things. So you see, it's good to have one branch split into two, but I don't like it when one of the two continues in the same direction as the one. Hopefully that makes sense. It just makes for a long, straight, boring branch. So I usually look for those and make a cut so that the branch will have some movement. Anyways, that's my little question mark. I just named it that just now. That's my question mark bonsai. Because that's what it started life as. It's a big question mark. This is my Ficus Benjamina forest, or pinging style. I just did a video on this a month or two ago. I've had this going for a couple of years now, and it did not do well for the first couple of years. Had it in some very organically rich soil, and it just didn't do well. But when I repotted it a month or two ago into some good bonsai soil, replenished it with some more cuttings, basically just to fill it in better, it's taken off ever since, as you can see. Those big rocks in there are not permanent. I just put them in there for stability. Forests are a little challenging when you don't wire them in, which I didn't. So I put those rocks in for stability. But anyways, I really like how it's coming along. I was pleasantly surprised, considering its first 2 years it really sucked. Those are some aerial roots that have pretty much dried up and died, but just to show it can be done. Haven't trimmed it up or anything since I repotted it a month or two ago. But that's just a quick update on that. You can go back and watch the video of repotting it if you like. It's can't be more than a month or two. This being August of 2023, it was probably somewhere in June. Now here's kind of a mixed bag of different styles I'm going with. Some of them are funky and I don't even know how to explain them. This one's not so funky, it's just a little different. This is a cascade style. So the trunk goes up, branches out to one side, then goes down like a cascade, like it cascades down. I don't like that branch right in front, kind of just like pokes you right in the face. I haven't done much to this yet. I did wire it up, and every now and then I'll kind of mess with it like I'm doing right now. You do have to keep a close eye on the wire on Ficus Benjamina because it eats into that soft bark pretty easily. So just keep a close eye on it. If it starts to a little bit, you can usually get it off in time without permanently scarring it. You leave it on too long, it takes years to go away. Now this funky little thing, I like it. It's weird. Wait till you see what it is. So all it is just a fat little stump of a cutting with a tiny little branch going off to the left side, and I thought, that's fun. So I potted it up, and then that little branch to the left just shot out. And then some other little branches shot out all around the stump, but look what I did. So I thought, well, this is fun. So I'm going to wire it up and kind of spiral it around. See, it's not even hooked onto anything. I just gave myself extra wire so I could keep spiraling it. So I don't know what style that is. I'm going to call it my spring cutting because it's like a little spring the way it spirals around. It's just fun and weird, and I'm fun and weird. At least I think so. So it matches my personality. Here's some experiments that I'm doing. I thought it would be neat to just shove cuttings in a small little pot like so, and I just keep shoving cuttings in there all the time, just shoving more cuttings in. Every so often I'll pull out the dead ones. Haven't repotted it. I barely trimmed it. I just trimmed it up a little bit so I could see what's going on in there. But otherwise, I think it'll make a fun little clump style, like a small clump style at some point. I'm just letting it grow. This one I decided not to trim it at all, which is hard. If you're a bonsai enthusiast or a hobbyist, you'll know that it's your instinct. You want to trim these things. But as you can see, I haven't. I've withstood the urge. It's really top heavy. It falls over all the time on the bench. But I just kind of want to see what happens, I guess. Is it going to start growing roots out of it all over the place? Probably. This one, it's got some wires all over the place. It's a little bit ugly. It's kind of in construction right now. This was my first bush to bonsai. I'll put a link for that video here. I did it in November of 2021. I bought a bonsai for, I think it was 20 or 40 bucks on Craigslist. Big bush. Cut it down to shape. Took me a while to get that shape in anything workable, but now, as you can see, I've wired it into some kind of style. You see how it's got kind of a fat trunk there? If you look real closely, you'll see that it was at some point originally just a bunch of cuttings that fused together. You kind of see it. When I chopped it way down to the sort of size it's in now, it was a weird shape, and I just, at the time, had no idea what I was going to do with it. But now it's starting to come along. It's kind of like, I don't know, like pom-poms or, pads almost. So it's coming along. It's growing some personality. It's a little thick right there on that side, so I'll probably trim it back a little bit to try and get some growth out the other side, but, small potatoes. So that was my first bush to bonsai. This was the air layer that came off of that bush to bonsai. I forgot to point out I did an air layer off of that. This was the air layer. I don't actually know what I'm doing here with it yet. I've wired it. It was in even weirder shape before I wired it. So I wired it up to kind of just push some branches outward. Did some guide wires to pull some branches down. I'm not in love with the current shape and structure, but that's okay. It's a journey, not a destination. We'll see where it goes. If you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know that I don't always have a solid plan. I don't have a hard and fast goal that I'm trying to make this happen with it. I always have kind of a soft goal. I guess what I'm going for currently, but that's subject to change. This one is still in a very flexible state where I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's got great potential. And it's got this big pot, a lot of room to grow, and branches coming out of every direction. So the options are endless. Now this one, I know what you're thinking. This is the most beautiful bonsai tree you've ever seen. But no, it's actually not. This is one of about, I don't know, a dozen fusion projects that I've got going on. I just grabbed one at random. It's not my main ficus fusion, which I'm going to do a full video on soon, just on that one ficus fusion alone. This is different. These were cuttings from both that first bush to bonsai, and then I did a second bush to bonsai last year. So I've been taking those cuttings, rooting them, and just bunching them together and trying to fuse them. Right now it's in a very raw state where I'm not focused on structure at all. I'm just kind of taking branches like you see there, and wherever I see an opportunity to sort of, twine them up together, I do. If you look, that's just regular plumber's tape, just Teflon plumber's tape. It's, of all the materials I've used, and I've used a lot, that seems to be working the best. And then that is copper coated wire that is holding it together like that. Be very careful when you use wire if you ever try a fusion project, because it will quickly eat into the bark. I'm watching this one closely. And also I don't care as much on some of these because I have so many. I think wire around the Teflon tape is a little bit safer than straight on the bark like that, but who knows. You can see where it's bulging up above the wire a little bit, so maybe I should take that off. I didn't notice that when I made this. I just noticed it now. But yeah, this is one of many. And then this one, I just wanted to show a little different style. This was also a cutting. Basically everything you see here is kind of a cutting except for that first bush to bonsai. This is just a small, kind of a beginner bonsai tree. I liked the structure. I liked it. Had some good taper. I've covered up the base a little bit with soil to kind of help thicken it up so you can't see it as well. But I just liked it. I don't know why. I like the structure, I like the shape, I like the style it's going in, so I put it in a bonsai pot, and here it is. I love the flexibility with these and the many styles that you can do with Ficus Benjamina. If you let them go too long, they get kind of weird, and I'll talk more on that here in a second. But first, I wanted to show one other, so we'll start with my crazy looking one here. This was a cutting that I potted in this pot a couple years ago, and I'm trying a different experiment here. What I'm doing is I'm trying to hack the tapering of it. Usually with taper, what you do is you let it grow out and then you trunk chop it, and then that way you get taper, thicker in the bottom, and it kind of gets thinner as it goes up. Here I'm trying the opposite. I'm sticking cuttings in the base to help thicken up the base. So I'm trying it from a bottom-up approach. We'll see. In the meantime, it's funky and wild and raw and kind of cool, kind of ugly at the same time. But it just goes to show you can do a lot of experimenting and a lot of different styles, and this is just one. And not all my experiments work, by the way. Sometimes they end in complete failure. But then there's not much to talk about, so, you know, I don't make a video on a failed dead tree, typically. I try to mention if a project I did a video on dies, but otherwise, not worth talking about. But as you can see here, it's in raw shapes, in rough shape. It's just another experiment where I'm trying to hack the tapering. You see some stuff. I'm just trying to spread out some branches, so I'm trying different things. What I was going to say earlier is if you let Ficus Benjamina go too long, they can get unruly and kind of boring. They just look like an office plant, basically, after a while. So you kind of want to stay on them a little bit. Let it grow out and then trim it back, and let it grow out and trim it back. This is another just smaller bonsai that I just liked it, and I had this little pot, and I thought, yeah, it's a shame for this pot to sit here empty. I've got a couple of cool little trees, so I've just been working on it. After all, I can't have all my trees in little training pots. May as well put some of them in decent bonsai pots. The upside and downside to putting them in bonsai pots when they're kind of young and little, they don't grow as fast. But it does tend to thicken up the base more for some reason. Or maybe it's just by contrast because it doesn't grow as fast, but the base does. I don't know. That's been my experience. So there it is, all trimmed up. So yeah, that's a look at some of my experiments, some of my different styles, some updates. Just wanted to share with you, the fun, flexible options that you have with a Ficus Benjamina. Thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.